In this video, I will demonstrate the initial configuration of the AIP-SSM module. The AIP-SSM is an IPS module for the ASA firewall family. You can find the specifications and user guide for the module and the firewall on cisco.com. Initial configuration of this module is fairly simple and consists of 3 steps. The first step is to configure basic system settings such as IP address and hostname of the module. That can be done through a session from the ASA. The second step is to send traffic from the ASA to the AIP module for inspection. And that is done using a policy map on the ASA firewall. And finally, we can fine-tune the configuration of the AIP sensor, and that can be done from the sensor CLI or from the GUI. Let's start by having a look at the firewall. This firewall has been configured with some very basic configuration. And as you can see from the output of the show module command, we already installed the AIP-SSM module. The AIP-SSM module has one external interface, which is a management interface. So this interface should be connected back to your management VLAN. So let's go ahead and session into the module by running the session1 command. The default username and password for the module is Cisco. And since we haven't configured the module before, we are taken to the system configuration dialog. Here we can configure some very basic settings such as the hostname, the IP address we configure here resides on the management interface. So this is the IP address through which you will manage the sensor through HTTPS and SSH or Telnet. And we also configure the default gateway. Now we are asked if we want to modify the current access list. This access list is applied to the management interface of the IPS. Without an access list, nobody will be allowed to manage the sensor through HTTPS, Telnet or SSH. So it is critical to configure an access list here. And to make things a bit easier for us in this demo, we'll just allow the entire subnet. Now the configuration dialog is asking us if we want to use a DNS server for global correlation. Global correlation is a new feature that was introduced in version 7.0 of the IPS code. You can find out more about what global correlation does on the community forum or on the sensor user guide. In order for the feature to work, the sensor needs to connect to the Cisco sensor-based server, and it needs a DNS server configured for that or a proxy server. So let's go ahead and configure a DNS server. You can also choose to participate in improving the sensor-based network by participating in sending statistical information to Cisco. And this is it for the basic configuration. The next step is to send traffic from the ASA to the module and complete the configuration of the sensor through the CLI or the IDM GUI.